Welcome to P01, the first session for Tuesday at the World Conference in Quality Improvement 2016. Today we're going to be looking at Kaizen Kanban with Fabrice Boudreau. And just a few things before we get started. Make sure you don't have any communication devices that you have on during the session. And make sure if you're going in and out, you do it very quietly. This year also we have an app survey, so we really appreciate it if you do complete the survey for the session, because it's very important for us as conference organizers to know which sessions work and which ones don't, and the good part of it, and also for the speaker, they like to get your feedback halfway in. So anyway, be sure you do the application survey. And like I said, today we're doing the Kaizen Kanban. And Fabrice Boudreau is an industrial and systems engineer, facilitator, and trainer with 18 years of experience managing lean, quality, and continuous improvement projects. His experience changing the company culture and improving processes cover a broad range of industries, including medical devices, pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, heavy equipment manufacturing, and textile. He is fluent in English, French, and Spanish, and delivered training in the United States, Caribbean, Mexico, and Latin America. He founded Houston-based ProcessZen Consulting, which delivers transformational solutions. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here this early this morning. As mentioned, my name is Fabrice, and I will be sharing with you today a process that my team and I have put together over 7 years. Before we get started, just a few formalities. We'll talk about the learning objectives. At the end of the session, everybody should be able to see one different way to use some fundamental tools that you may already have in your toolbox. Some of the tools I'm going to share with you today might seem basic to some of you. To some others, it might seem blasphemy that I'm transforming the tools and making them fit to my need. And that's pretty much the theme of most of the training that I do. Helping people realize how do you transform your tools so they can deliver what you need them to be. We're also going to emphasize a lot on facilitation. And we're going to share throughout today some facilitation tips that may help you. And I'll go a little bit more into detail a little bit later about that. We're also, our final product is going to be a prioritized project pipeline. And I will talk about that in detail also. And by the end of the day, you'll be able to explain the difference between the 5 different types of Kaizen. So I'll start this with a question for you. If I have a few volunteers telling me, can anybody relate to that picture? I mean, how many of us signed up to be firefighters? All right, except the one firefighter in the room. What I've realized is in a lot of companies, a lot of us get signed up supposedly to create change. They promise us in the job description, change agent. You're going to be able to transform the company. And next thing we know, we end up being firefighters. Now, the cool thing about firefighters is that you feel like a superhero. You know, you can actually get addicted. You become almost an arsonist. You know, just to make sure that I saved the day. Right? But in reality, wouldn't you be rather working on projects that change an entire organization? Well, coming to Wisconsin is actually kind of a homecoming for me. My career in quality actually started down the street at some very prestigious companies in Wisconsin. And they promised me all of that. They told me, you know, we have so many plans for you. You can't help but be successful. Especially you're going to do a lot of change management. Well, this is more what happened the first week. You know, they told me, and this is the sales speech. They told me, you're extremely high potential. So we're going to hire you. I didn't know what that meant. 2 weeks, so I'm all excited because I'm high something. And then they tell me, 2 weeks before I start, you are so high potential, we are putting you in our Six Sigma class. I'm like, okay, great, martial arts and company. And you tell me, but what you need to do is bring 2 project charters. Now that's when I started panicking. I call my future boss and I tell him I have no clue what a project charter is. And he says, well, I just want to let you know, if you cannot bring 2 project charters, we're going to put you on probation. So, can you imagine, I'm going to start a company, I go from being high, literally, to you're on probation. And that scenario would repeat itself at every company I went. How many of you guys have signed up for a class that says the best way for you to know the material is to do a project? And then requested that you come up with a project before you join the class. That is extremely common. What usually ends up happening, since then I've become an instructor, and we found that poor project selection contributes to why most projects die before they get started. I mean, I have most of my students, the first project, they will get excited about it until they learn the tools. So we've identified poor project selection as one of the reasons people fail. Another thing that we realized is that our top students, whenever we train them, they would fail in the first week. After the first meeting, they will be completely discouraged. Whether it was Lean or Six Sigma, continuous improvement, whatever the flavor of the day we were using. So we started going to see their kickoff meetings. And what we have found out is that as instructors, as organizations, we were teaching people what tools do. We never took the time to teach anybody how to facilitate using the tools. That little something that you've all acquired over the years, we expect our new green belts, our new bronze candidates to be able to have it. So my team and I have decided we're going to create a system that will accomplish 2 main things. Create a prioritized project pipeline. Therefore, when a new green belt, a bronze candidate, even a black belt comes to a class, they will have projects pre-selected. What the business also gets out of it is that through the process we're going to use, every single project we choose will be directly related to the key business objectives. Another advantage that we will have is that since those projects are prioritized, we'll be able to give the simpler one, the entry-level ones, to green belts, and not let the black belts get them. Because, you know, my colleagues and I had a tendency to do that. We get the easy ones. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. I hope the session will be very interactive. Please interrupt me at any time. What we will do at the end, we will take a few minutes for questions, and then I'll come back to put a few concluding notes. So we'll talk about quickly the advantages of our visual facilitation approach. Because another thing that we did, that we realized as facilitators, we wanted everybody in the group to be involved. And the best way to do that is to have everybody on their feet, even if it's a 3-day Kaizen, by doing everything using butcher paper and a wall. And I'll show you some of the pictures of what we've done. So this tool is going to complement existing quality initiatives. All the tools that you already have, your Six Sigma projects, your Six Sigma training, all of that is actually an integral part of this. This is really to set you up for success for all those initiatives. We're going to combine existing toolboxes. Lean Six Sigma, now is common. It wasn't that common a few years ago. We're going to leverage the experience of all participants. And we're going to compile and prioritize improvement opportunities. And like I mentioned, they're going to be linked to key business objectives. So let's do a little bit of review, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And this is one of the things we do when we're starting, even if we have a very experienced group, to make sure that we're looking at things from the same perspective. So what's a Kaizen? Anybody led a Kaizen in the room?
Well, it's like an accelerated event where you focus on solving a problem.
Okay. Anybody else? That's a great answer. Thank you. Continuous improvement. Yes, in a nutshell, Kaizen is a team event to quickly break something apart so you can put it back together better. I found out that we're really good at taking things apart. Putting them back together for it to work, not always. What about a Kanban? Anybody use the Kanban? Anybody in manufacturing? Want to share with us your opinion of the Kanban or experience?
It was very hard to implement, and a lot of people, resisted the idea of things, but once it was embraced, it streamlined our entire raw material inventory.
Perfect. I like the fact that you mentioned raw material and inventory. Traditionally, a Kanban, which means signboard or display board, is started in manufacturing to help the operators, the managers, the supervisors know what tools to retrieve or what part to build next. What we've decided to do is combine those two words, the word Kaizen Kanban. We are going to create a Kanban for Kaizens. That's our final product. Our final product is going to be a visual display where everybody knows what project they should be working on next. Therefore, the word project pipeline. Out of curiosity, how many people, anybody has a problem when they're starting projects, finding the projects? If they're teaching a new class of 20 people, and you have to find 20 projects? Hopefully this will help. This is going to be our roadmap for today. Everything we do is going to build on each other, kind of a ripple effect. We're going to start with a simple process map. We're going to build on the process map. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. I mentioned those characteristics already. Apologize. We're going to start with a process map. We're going to build on that to do value-add, non-value-add analysis, and I'll show how we did the presentation. We'll evolve to doing a sidewalk, and we'll be using some of the cards that you have on your desk at that point. On that, we're going to enhance the sidewalk by putting clearly defined input and output requirements to it. With all that information, it will be very easy for us to do an FMEA directly on the wall. And eventually, we'll combine all of this information to create our Kaizen Kanban. So let's start with the process map. A process map is just a visual representation of the steps to complete a task. One of the most important reasons to use a process map is the same reason that we use whiteboards, to make sure that everybody is looking at the same picture. Very often I find some of my teams in violent agreement. Very, very often, until we put the board on the table. Now, as we were doing the process maps, one of the things we've realized, the key concept, a lot of people fail to realize that given that the process map should be understandable to everybody, it needs to tell a story. And for it to tell the story by itself, using the nomenclature verb, noun, for every single step goes a long way. I've done process maps where one of the steps is water. I've done another process map where the step was oil. That's kind of ambiguous, right? We have to interpret it. But if you take the discipline of having verb noun, we'll have boil water, clean car. We take the process map, and what we do after that, we go and we talk to people about how would you do that? How would you facilitate having a process map? What I found is I have a group of about 20, 24 people, or if I'm leading 3 Kaizens at the same time, and I'm going to start the first half day with training or mapping the process, after about 30 minutes, I'll lose half of the people. So we did some research to see how we could avoid that. And what we found is we could modify what's called the 7 ways. The 7 ways is traditionally the technique used to help you make sure you have the right map, by which you have your team map the process the first time, you take away all their information, you map it a second time, you take away all the information, you repeat it 7 times. For us, that seemed like a waste of time, especially if you have 24 people from different departments. So typically what I do now, I'll break up the team. And every group of 3 or 4 people goes and does their version of the process map. Very quickly, you end up with a bunch of versions of process maps everywhere. What we then do is have the teams present to each other. No questions allowed. You have to hear the process map from the beginning to the end. And you have to be able to present, even if it's a 30, 50, 75-step process map, in less than 10 minutes. That accomplishes a couple of things. The first thing is everybody has their say. Everybody feels they had a chance to say what they want. And by not letting questions being asked, everybody else gets to hear your entire perspective, your entire point of view. And that helps everybody become a little bit more open. Because an accountant might look at the same process from an accounting perspective, versus an engineer will look at it maybe from an engineering perspective. The quality guy is really going to look at it differently. Once we have done that, one of the tools, as we're doing the presentation to help speed it up, this was one of the projects I did in oil and gas. I actually printed a piece of paper that would have covered most of this wall. And each of those little squares are Post-its. I assigned a color Post-it to each team. And they would go and they would show, this is our very high level process map. This is what we think the steps are. Once we've done that, everybody's more apt to listen. We together converge and make our one map. This was our one map. That allows us to get everybody's input very fast, very efficiently, it's very complete, and everybody had their say. Yes, sir?
When you did that, did you break people up in their functional operating areas, or was it a combination of just push people?
Awesome question. We've tried it different ways, and it works really depending on the situation. We've tried it if we had enough people to represent each group, like finance or marketing, we've done it that way. We've also done it by, if we're doing doc to doc, we might do it per department. That helps it go faster. Because one of the things that happens, whenever I'm listening to the teams, and they start saying, you know, I think this is the step, or I heard, or I believe, these are your keywords that person is speculating. This is the key, letting you know, stop the mapping. So, does that answer your question?
No, thank you.
Awesome. Now, another thing that the process map, and I want to introduce, this is the first time we start introducing to our team our OFIs, opportunities for improvement. As we're doing the map, as you all know, we have some eager beavers, some superstars, some know-it-alls, a combination of the three, that already know the problems. They also know the answers. And if you don't let them speak, they're going to pout, they're going to be upset, they don't want to contribute, they're going to drag the team down. If you let them speak, you're going to go down a rabbit trail you don't want them to go. So what we've done is take the idea of a parking lot, an ideal parking lot, and apply it directly to the process map. Whenever you have an idea, you think something could be a problem, or you wish you could observe something, we give you little Post-its in the shape of starbursts and ask you to write it, and we put it directly on the step where it could happen. And we're going to do that throughout the entire process as we go through the different tools. So we're starting to, as you can see, capture potential projects. If you're working in biomedical and all of a sudden you have a leak in your purification room that could lead to contamination, it's something we should solve. But it might not be what we're going to solve during this session. So I don't want to lose that idea. So I'll say, we'll just put a note. Potential leak fixing project. And that's where we leave it. And we move on. The goal is to keep things moving, to have momentum. We don't want to be stagnant. Next thing we'll do, we'll go to the value-add, non-value-add analysis. A lot of our colleagues have been doing things for so long, they think it's part of the project. They think part of the process, I'm sorry. I actually had a team where there was about 15 steps that they could not map. They knew they did it every time, but they could not map it. They could not figure out what came first. It was a team of buyers at a biomedical company, and at an oil and gas company, and they were reviewing. One of their steps was review blueprints and make corrections. Now, imagine this is oil and gas, subsea, highly complex machinery, and we have buyers that we hire straight off the street that decide they're going to be reviewing blueprints to make corrections. That introduced a lot of problems. And the only reason we found out about it is because we did not know where to put those non-value-added steps on the map. So what we do to help the team better understand that there are steps we potentially can eliminate, reduce their duration, or correct, is that we give them little green, red, and yellow dots. The same, and they're very cheap. You go buy them at Office Depot or Office Max. These are the color coding tabs, the little circles you can put in file folders. And we have them go on our maps and directly put them. That helps them realize just how much waste we have in our process. Typically, this is where I would have gone over a quick waste session with them, explaining to them what the different types of wastes are. To give you an idea of an impact, we had one company, that same company, we found that about 70% of our steps were non-value added. We found that most of our problems, about 80% of our overall problems, came from those steps. And the most interesting thing we found is that none of those steps were supposed to be done. It was pure invention of buyers decide they're going to correct blueprints. When we started, we found out that just buyer's correction cost us millions of dollars in cars and cars later on. So we'll do that, so our map becomes this color. All of this is to another, what people don't realize is, if you look at the map attentively, you will find even more opportunities for improvement. Think of it as a captain having the first mate go and clean the deck of the boat. It's not really to clean it. It's to see if there's cracks and there's opportunities for it to fail. So by having people look at it from this perspective, they find more opportunities for improvement and they put them on the map again. Yes, ma'am?
Sorry for the question, but it's bugging me the couple of times that you've said it. Why would buyers be reviewing engineering blueprints?
That is exactly the question that we found. It just happened that it started and buyers would bring in new buyers and they would do that. That was actually when upper management found that out. I don't even want to tell you what happened to engineering. Engineering flipped. Because I mean, they spent all that time doing copy-paste from one project to the next for somebody to go and fix it. Yes, sir. That makes people very aware of them, and that helps reinforce the concept that we might be doing things that are not necessary. Another thing that it does for us for participation is by looking at processes from that far away, the process owners feel less threatened. One other thing that we found is that new people coming to Lean, or that might be influenced by people that had bad experiences with Lean resulting in layoffs, the big no-no, get very afraid. So by doing it like this, they realize, oh, this is not necessary. I mean, there's one company, we eliminated 2 jobs. We freed up $200,000 from 2 receiving clerks that we had hired as inspectors. We hired them as inspectors, and for 3 years, their job was, whenever a part came, they flipped it so that the sticker would show up so we can scan it in. They were extremely frustrated. That's not what they wanted. Now, if you look at all our contracts, it was required that the parts should come with the part number showing up. So you can imagine those guys, once they realized this is not value add, fortunately I was pretty close to them, so they raised their hand. They said, yes, we've been saying this for 2 years. I cannot find another job because I cannot put that I did anything on my resume except flip parts. I'm a part flipper. So we were able to eliminate this, which saved us that money and also solved a huge problem we had. We had a big bottleneck at receiving, and we were, because of budget restrictions, couldn't hire other people. Can you imagine you find 2 free people in your organization? Yes, ma'am. It's, the better word could have been mandatory. It's one of those things that always causes us issues when we are doing the exercise. What it is, I'll give you the one place that's easiest to explain. If you are, I was separating blood plasma. I was at an organization in California, that's what we did. And to get into our purified clean rooms, we had to go on up. That was probably one of the most important things to prevent contamination, because somebody has a cold and gets in there, we lose millions of dollars. So we had to protect everybody. So that's one of those things that was essential to our process, that was mandatory that we had to do, but that really did not change the form, fit, or function of the product. It did not make our product any better. Another one is maybe processing paperwork that you have to for some compliance, for some good manufacturing practices. Yes, sir.
So it's more in the context of risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a potential risk.
Very often, very, very often.
Value added. So in the end, if you're avoiding risk, in a sense you are adding value, because if you go to the room and contaminate the product, you are going to lose millions of dollars. So perhaps in the context of risk, that doesn't make more sense.
I am so happy you bring that up. That's a perfect way of framing it. And every time I've tried to eliminate this completely, we get into that debate. So having the essential non-value add allows us to create peace in our facilitation. Because at the end of the day, it's just a tag that we're putting on the step. It's not really going to change the process. So fortunately, very often there's somebody like, sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir? Very often I'm lucky enough to have somebody like Martin that makes a comment that neutralizes everybody. That makes it possible for everybody to accept the tagging.
One last comment. So what we have read is value added is something which customers are looking for. For example, we are telecom companies, we have to test our products before we ship it to the customer. The customers may not care, but we care because we don't want to ship something.
Let me flip it for you on this side. If you were sure that your product was good, would you test it? The idea is any testing, any inspection is, in essence, on a purity, non-value add. We do it because sometimes we're required to do it, it makes us feel good. And the biggest risk with doing the value add, non-value add analysis is to let people forget this is just to help us have the debate. At the end of the day, what we tag it as doesn't prevent us. Like, even if you have a value-added step, you can reduce how much time it takes. You can try to eliminate it, just the same way you could do a non-value-add step. But as you can see, just from our quick interaction here, it brings questions up, again, helping us identify more opportunities for improvement. Yes, sir?
I just want to make a comment that we termed that last, we termed it business value added. So whether it's SOX compliance or some type of regulation, we say because in order for us to run our business, we have to provide certain things of business value added.
That also, another great example of how a good facilitator will modify the word to make it more acceptable. That is a perfect way to put an end to the discussion. So this is the heart of the process I'm proposing. This is where we're getting to the heart of it. So what's a SIPOC? Anybody use a SIPOC? Customer, right? Okay. So to build on what you said, it's a methodology that displays for us who are suppliers, input, processes, output, and customers are. This is how we typically, this is how I was taught when I was in engineering school, and reinforced by all my Six Sigma classes. You list all your processes, right? And it depends. Some people will say we start with input, some others will say we start with output, right? You have your outputs, you list all of them, and you do the same thing for your customers. Then you're going to list all your inputs, and then you go ahead and you list all your suppliers. Sounds great, right? So typically, we'll take a process map like this, flip it on its side, and we get it like this. You can see the color coding, orange and orange, yellow and yellow, just for it to be simple. What's the biggest problem with this? We know what the inputs are, we know what the outputs are, we know who the customer is. However, you don't know this output here, which step it came from. You might not know what are the interim outputs that you have. Some of your interim outputs between those steps here really become some of the inputs for the next steps. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a process map where for every single process step, we had a sidewalk. That's what we decided to do. And this gives you an example. This is the first version of these cards. If you look on your chairs, you can grab your card. This is the first version of when we were doing, actually I should say the second. The first time we did it with Post-its, multicolored Post-its. And as you can see, we had the entire process map done like this. And what we're going to do for the rest of the session, very quickly so we don't run out of time, is go over the steps on how we use this little card and how much it saves us time. So we're going to start with the same basic process map, except for each of the steps, we're going to take the card and we're going to answer some questions. Now there's two ways you can be tempted to fill out the card. For every step, try to answer all those questions, or the better way, the way we recommend, is that you're going to take everything you had on your process map, all those Post-its, and you're going to enter them here as verb noun. So you make a card for each step and you line them up. If you notice, this current version of the card has two sides. On one side you have a decision diamond, and on the other card, on the other side you have a process. It's a process box. Yes, sir?
Do you have more cards?
Oh, yeah. I think we may have ran out of a few cards. What I can do, if you give me a business card, I can mail you one. All right. There's some, oh yeah, if you guys don't mind, there's some seats that are empty. Do you mind? Thank you. So we'll put the verb down. That's the first thing we do. That's a normal process, a normal sidewalk, right? We put our, is it value add, non-value add, we put a dot on there so we can stay consistent. And the next thing we do is not normally done with a sidewalk. In fact, the next two steps are not done. Defining who the process owner and who the process operator are. There's several reasons why we do this. The first thing is, depending on who you are in the organization, your level of the organization, you might refer to a step in several different ways. Some people will say, this is Joe's step. Joe does this. This is his operation. Another person will say, Mark is in charge of this. He's the owner for this step. So by having this, we're getting more information, and it's going to save us a lot of discussion when we start trying to figure out who's the supplier and who's the customer. There are several processes that the same person completes several subsequent steps. And as you're trying to do a traditional sidewalk, people get frustrated. They say, wait, how can Paul be the one that sends this? He gets the part, sends it, now he has a sended part, that he's the customer, he's going to wipe it, and then he